So welcome Nadia, and welcome Galia. I have Galia here in the studio, in my office. And today we're not starting the official program, but starting an exploration of the subject. And we'll do an overview, do some Q&A, and do a little practice. And then we'll go more formally into the program starting next week. So let's actually begin with a short practice, and then begin our exploration. If I can switch off all these notification sounds. Okay. So bringing awareness into the body and the breath. Settling in to where you are. Noticing how the body is supported. Feeling, if you have your feet on the ground, noticing that sensation of the contact of the feet with the earth element, the support of the earth element, the solidity, feeling the legs supported, the buttocks, the back, and if it's the case, also the arms, hands, whatever is supported, just feeling into that, resting deeper in that support, enjoying that support, appreciating it. And while you let yourself go in that support, also finding the natural verticality that the body's structure has. So you find this balance between a letting go, a kind of melting into formlessness that the support invites us into, and the inherent verticality that's part of the life structure, both the physiology and the energetics of our system, drawing us up. Awareness of the breath, not needing to do anything in particular with the breath, but as you bring awareness to it, you may find that the breath deepens, and you can allow also if a sigh arises, allow for any impulse for the body to stretch, to yawn, just softening into that listening of the body's impulses, giving room for them. Feeling the body supported, and also awareness of the breath, and softness in the body, space for the body to move. Even just the slightest little movements that explore where there may be some discomfort, some possibility of opening, decompressing, feeling into the body where there might be that possibility of release, inviting that gentlest of movements that opens and releases the neck and the shoulders. Maybe there's some movement of the head, and the wrists and the arms. Just bringing curiosity into the body, so not trying to push for any movement to happen, but with curiosity, listening in and seeing what arises. And you can do this practice sitting or standing. If you feel the impulse to explore this standing up, then that's absolutely welcome. Listen into the body and respond with fluidity to what's arising. Remembering to be in awareness of the breath also. Allowing for the sigh or the yawn or the stretch. And I invite you to also let the voice be available to assist in decompressing and these releases that the body can allow. The breath can be a part of that, the breath and the voice. And just with the softest sound, beginning to open that channel of release through the voice. And again, remembering that support that the body is receiving in this moment. Appreciating that feeling of support. Feeling that it gives stability, gives strength, gives confidence. The fact that there is support. And letting that subtle possibility of stimulating a sense of confidence, relief, to also playfully let that influence come into your posture, and also connecting with the heart, the energy of the heart, and the qualities that we associate with it, which is courage and confidence, joy, gratitude, kindness, open-heartedness, love, compassion. Just exploring the possibility of this space of the heart being open with these resonant qualities. And if you like, you can visualize in this space of the chest a solar radiance like the sun rising, the warmth, potency of the sun, the life-giving force rising in the heart space, bringing light and warmth, nourishing energy, radiating in through the body, radiating through the organs, the cells, the bones, the blood, the skin, filling the body and moving through and beyond the physical form. So feeling like your whole being is this radiance of heartfulness. You can think of it as the energy of the smile. So without needing to force a smile, you can just explore also that possibility that a smile arises, and that it is that radiant quality, that heart quality, that solar vitality radiating and bringing more of that softness into the body, that spaciousness, that allowing of movement, of decompression, of allowing for expression of what is arising and being released. And enjoying this restfulness that you may find in the body, in the mind, in the whole energetic body. Resting in that feeling of expansiveness and groundedness and centeredness. Resting and enjoying that quality of presence. And I invite you to be open to that quality of presence being available. I invite you to allow it to be available, whether your eyes are open or closed, whether you are in movement or in stillness, whether you are interacting or alone. So just inviting for there to be that seed, that reminder of allowing for that possibility that it is available. The groundedness, the centeredness, the restful well-being, sense of fullness even, fulfillment. Finding this as an unconditional well-being that can be just dropped back into. We can rest back into this space whenever we remember. And we can even use a little acronym to help to remember to drop back into this. So we don't have to go through a particular meditative process. We can just think of the word grace and the acronyms that comes from the word, the letter G we can associate with grounding. Remembering that settling in of the body, that restfulness and support, a connection with the earth element, the strength that brings. So the G, just recalling them, grounding and anchoring into that feeling that you have in this moment through the practice. So you bridge, when you think of grounding, into this experiential restfulness and strength. And the letter R, you can think of it as release. So the body is softening, decompressing. Movement can help with that release, the breath, even the voice. So in whatever way it naturally can arise, release. And the letter A, aliveness, vitality that can express itself in that subtlest movement and in the sensations. And also in the vitality associated with that radiance of the heart, that solar quality of nourishing energy. Aliveness comes also with breath, enjoying the inhalation, the receiving of fresh renewal of energy. and with the energy of the smile and the open heart, the aliveness that comes with that spacious openness, combined with the groundedness. And then let us see centeredness. So emphasizing that availability for the heart space to be open, to be enjoying that exploration of the heart qualities, the energy of the smile, centeredness, being at home in that space, being at home in that quality of presence, the confidence, gratitude. And the E, expansion. And that just arises naturally as a result of the grounding and the softening, the release, the aliveness, the centeredness. The expansion comes naturally and is combined with the groundedness and the centeredness. The expansion comes from that strong root, that strong embodied awareness. Grace, grounding, release, aliveness, centeredness, and expansion. So when you're ready, without any hurry, and recalling that invitation to be in the same space, the same quality of presence, whether your eyes are open or closed, in stillness or in movement. When you feel ready, you can share a few words to express what is present, what is released, without needing to analyze it, just letting whatever words arise, whether they make sense or not. They don't have to be a formulation and explanation, just a spontaneous expression of what is arising.
I feel really relaxed, which is not something a sensation I've had a lot recently.
Can you hear Nadia?
Not really.
Sorry, that was really low.
If you could say that again. Thank you.
I feel very relaxed, which is not a sensation I've been feeling much recently.
Thanks for sharing. I feel warm. It's very cold in Hong Kong and I've been freezing all day. So yeah, I actually feel like I'm defrosting and warm.
Great. So I invite you to notice when over the course of the day and just day to day, to listen into those impulses of stretching and yawning and sighing, and perhaps finding yourself more receptive to give expression in a way that's really rich and uninhibited, the way that we see cats and dogs uninhibitedly yawning and stretching spontaneously, not needing to build up their tension until they go to a yoga class, but just moment to moment in real time, giving space for the intelligence of the body to be expressed. Part of our work with Tantra is to just recover a healthy relationship to the body and the intelligence that would be keeping us in balance if we weren't overriding it with our civilized habits of tightness and formality. The things that we pride ourselves that we call being civilized are often ways of being very tight, predictable, conformed to a system of behavior, which you could say we've given away freedom and spontaneity to get in return a kind of security that all this formality gives. Having forms of behavior that we conform to gives us a kind of security, and it also creates a stuckness, a tightness. You could really even say that it's creates the inevitability of an existential pain at the core of all civilization, a dis-ease, an uneasiness, and an inevitable stress, and the search for release of some kind, which often we just don't know where to get that release, how to find ourselves whole again, how to feel a sense of peace, integrity, the sacred, the whole. And so we're taking a very, very simple approach to spirituality, which is really a way to say also that we're finding the feeling of being in wholeness, that there isn't something that is left out of our experience, something that is hoped for in some transcendent realm and that we can't experience in this moment. So we're creating the conditions for a sense of such rich wholeness in this moment that it's grace, it's divine communion. We're healing at the same time our relationship to the body, the life force, and our relationship with the divine. And if you prefer not to use a word like divine, if it evokes some kind of religious dogma, then you can think of it as the whole, the totality, the universe, if you like, the cosmic totality. Reestablishing a healthy relationship, a communion with all of existence. Is there anything that comes up as any insight also from this practice, any question perhaps?
Interestingly, well, the last week I've been working from home a lot more because of lockdown in Hong Kong. We're going through now what the rest of the world went through like last year, so pretty severe lockdown, and in front of the computer all day. But yeah, like arriving here tonight, well, it's our nighttime here, and trying to disconnect, but also being connected via this medium. I think it's interesting because I'm still able to separate the two. Like I don't feel like I'm in a Zoom call with colleagues. I do feel like the difference, which is interesting because for me, I feared, you know, being in front of the screen, but I feel like I'm able to separate that. So that's an insight. Like it's not necessarily the medium, it's also the quality of what's going on.
Great. Yeah.
I guess an insight I would say that's surfacing for me is just this idea of divine timing and how things kind of do work in cycles and themes, and just this recent full moon in Leo, and so much about heart expansion, and like you were saying, courage and confidence and passion and love, and then how that intertwines with this idea of what's civil, and how almost at the root of that can cause like an existential crisis. I think that was very poignantly puts some of the emotional experiences I've been having recently. So it basically just makes a lot of sense that these themes and expressions would surface so readily and so clearly.
Thank you for sharing. So we can give just maybe half a minute to allow for spaciousness and to not need to rush into content, but to appreciate the naturalness of experience without it being an intellectual experience, an experience that we have to be able to understand in the usual sense. So just continuing with our awareness of the quality of presence in this moment, just the appreciation of it, what the change in the physiological rhythms enables as a state of consciousness that results from it. So I hope that in this little experiential exploration, this experiential introduction, that there's already some demystification of what is Tantra and what is the process, what is the purpose, and also what is the reason why we even have a journey that we feel drawn to. What are we trying to recover? Why is there even a need to seek some kind of change? What is the cause of our discontent, our pain, our restlessness? Realizing that there's an inevitability that is at the heart of what any civilization does, generation after generation. There's an inevitability to the discontent. And I'm not saying that we are doomed to be always in discontent, but that without recovering a healthy relationship to the body, the life force, to life, so the inner expression of life and the environment, the surrounding environment, the natural expression of life, if there isn't a reestablishing of a kind of communion within and with what exists around us, what we are an expression of, there isn't a reestablishing of communion with all of this, of course we will be seeking to remedy our existential pain. Of course we will be seeking something different to what we're experiencing in the present, a dissatisfaction, and a sense of needing resolution. And the mind can make that journey very complicated. The finding of a solution can be made infinitely complicated by the mind. Always elaborating new reasons why we shouldn't be satisfied and why we have to do this or that in order to be able to or to deserve to be in peace and to be at rest, to be satisfied. And so we're working not with the mind's ideas about fulfillment and peace, but working with the physiology, the rhythm of life, working with the body's intelligence to reestablish the conditions for well-being. All the elaborate and even inspiring spiritual teachings and practices will be a struggle, a tremendous ongoing, lifelong, perhaps many lives of struggle, if we don't find the connection with the physiological root of our pain, our discontent, our restlessness. Can't just try to override the mind's habits with new ideas of what is right or what we should do or who we should be or what is virtuous. When we find well-being reestablished in an embodied sense, then those spiritual ideas of virtue and purity, or whatever spiritual ideals are taught, they can arise spontaneously from that place of well-being. They can arise spontaneously, not as an imposition, as part of a struggle with the shadow, a struggle with the ego, a struggle with the mind, but just as spontaneous qualities arising from a feeling of fulfillment and feeling at peace, feeling safe. The great war with the ego and with the mind is part of the mind's complexity, complications arising from not establishing the core foundation for well-being. The mind will change its mind when the physiological rhythm changes. Our focus changes, our perspective changes, our receptivity, our ability to listen, to empathize, to be available to others, to not be in a power struggle with others in order to try to fix something. The simplest of starting points, establishing physiological conditions for well-being. This begins already to undermine all those supposed villains, the mind, the ego. They already begin to just become whispers instead of such powerful forces directing the psyche. They become just old echoes, they become quieter and quieter until the sense of fulfillment just brings them into silence. They have nothing to say where there is a space of fulfillment. Because they're symptoms of discontent, they're symptoms of feeling unsafe, and that's a physiological experience. The feeling of restlessness and anxiety and tightness. So if we can unwind that tightness, we also unwind the tightness of the mind, the egocentricity, the self-centeredness. There's a change in the dynamic of how our attention flows, what we are capable of offering into the world. One of the greatest obstacles in the spiritual path is our idea of what is perfection. What are we comparing ourselves to? What are we seeing as the problem when we compare ourselves to what we think should be or could be? And even the idea of liberation, of enlightenment, can be one of the great obstacles. The projection into the future, this very difficult to attain state of perfection, of absolute freedom from ego and freedom from egoity, projection of perfect virtue. these mental constructs make it very difficult to appreciate the simplicity. Very difficult to rest, to feel that we deserve to rest. Make it very difficult for us to appreciate the beauty that is present. And appreciation, we can call it gratitude, contentment. It dissolves all that complication that the mind comes up with. And we can practice that gratitude, that contentment. And this is what we've been doing in a way. We've created, through a kind of physiological exploration, the possibility to come into a space of contentment. So again, I invite you to allow yourself to drop back to it at any time, just by recalling. Hmm. 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 Any questions or any inspirations? Anything that feels anything that's arising that you'd like to share?
I thought it was nice to have one of the questions before you ended at the beginning of what you were saying just now was which comes first, trying to find and undo the root of our conditioning, or establishing a foundation for well-being. But you answered that, because it goes hand in hand. Once we establish a foundation for our well-being, namely a physiological foundation, that will undo our conditioning. So I liked that, like that. Also, the word wholeness that you used a lot. Just I visualize a circle, and how, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you for sharing, Nadia.
I think for me, something that resonated was just the permission for rest. And I feel, thankful to be here and be working with some of these concepts that I personally am wanting and needing to figure out how to put into use as tools when interacting with people that I really love. And some of what you're speaking of feels so kind of natural and in alignment with where I am and who I am and the direction that I'm going in. But I do meet conflict there, but then oftentimes feel like I don't, maybe I shouldn't be, that maybe that's not an appropriate natural space for me to be, and then being able to communicate that effectively in whatever mode of communication. So it feels very appropriate to be here and exploring all of these concepts. Because I would love to be able to feel confident, comfortable in it, and also be able to lead by example, and not only from the intellectual, use of words and all of these things that are,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So I'd like to drawing from what you just shared about the bringing into action, into interaction of this, of let's say this clarity and this quality of understanding, this quality of being. As we come back to this physiological state that this simple practice brings about, and I call this practice GraceFlow meditation. I actually used to call this practice 3 anchors. The earth as one anchor, anchoring into this such core, powerful aspect of the sense of, you could say, being at home, sense of giving us strength and a sense of restfulness by anchoring into earth. And the other anchor being the heart, again, the sense of being at home, being at the core of our essence, just resting in that core. And then the third anchor actually being the crown and expansion beyond form, expansion in a way that is beyond concepts of any kind or a kind of physical location associated, just absolute expansiveness. But coming back to the practice, coming back to the experience. In fact, I want to emphasize, because the mind plays tricks very easily. When we even just speak of the word practice, the mind will put it in the category of work, discipline, effort. And so intentionally reframing it, when we come back to the experience, when we come back to that quality of presence, and we just drop back into it, we're retraining our physiology, and by that I mean our biochemistry. We're reconfiguring it, and we are consolidating a state or a flow. We're consolidating a new pattern, a new tendency. We're rewiring, we're creating new neural pathways, strengthening a state of consciousness or a capability of being in that quality of presence, of awareness. So the return to that quality of being, I tend to use the word state, and it's actually an unhelpful word because it implies static, in the sense of lack of dynamism, lack of life. And so it's very much not a state, but the word tends to arise because of the way it's used. So we're coming actually into a real dynamism and aliveness, anything but a state in the sense of sterility. So we come back and rest in this aliveness, this fullness, and it's more and more consolidated as a pattern. You could even say it's creating a new habit in the physiology, a new habit of experiencing from that state, that perspective of being in this way. And by strengthening these new neural pathways of a richness of aliveness, of a feeling of being safe, grounded and centered, feeling of fulfillment, that is more and more carried into the world, more and more available as, you could even say, looking at it in very pragmatic terms, as a resource to empower us in our interactions, in the challenges that arise. This new resource of feeling safe, feeling fulfilled as a kind of default state that we can just drop into and find that there is a new kind of intelligence that expresses itself from there. Different facets of intelligence, let's call it, creativity, manifest from that space of well-being rather than anxiety, well-being and confidence rather than insecurity. The different expressions arise. And so the mind will tend to ask itself, what do I do with this knowledge? What do I do with this understanding? And it will try to become the controller of decisions, the planner, the strategist. The mind will want to know what to do. And it's simpler than the mind will allow us to see. The mind comes in, you could say, with good intentions to solve a problem. So notice when there is this assumption that there's a problem. Notice the mind coming in and getting busy with trying to solve it. And perhaps you can drop back into the self-regulation that the breath allows, the feeling of groundedness allows. Grounding, release, aliveness, centeredness, expansion, and perhaps just that reconnecting into that space of aliveness. And the busyness of the mind is just not there. The question isn't there of what do I have to, how do I solve the problem? Because there is no longer the same perspective. So even the idea that there was a problem is changed. And it doesn't mean that this enables you to have no challenges. And perhaps that would be a boring existence. So it just means that we have different resources to meet every challenge. So we're not idealizing retreating from the world, retreating from our life into stillness, disconnecting from all the dynamism of life in order to feel the relaxation that comes from that retreat. We're not idealizing any of that. I just muted for a moment to take out the sound of the siren. That's you know the sound of the siren, Nadia. You were living here and nearby for a while.
Yeah, it's the Bomberos.
Yeah.
12 o'clock drill.
Yeah. So not idealizing disconnection from everything, to find peace through disconnection. And instead finding that we can be engaged in all of life's experience with new resources, which can give us the feeling of being in the flow. You know, I was objecting to the word state, and the word flow is in a way the opposite. State as in static, as in still, as in kind of, you know, like you've reached some sort of a place with no dynamism. So notice if the mind uses ideas, static ideas, like a state of enlightenment. Notice if the mind tries to idealize something like that, a state of liberation, as if there is this place from which there's no stimulus, no challenge, no interaction with life, no dynamism at all. Notice the unhelpful fantasy that the mind can create about what is liberation. Because the mind can be creating something that can never be held onto, can never be maintained, cannot be sustained. But what life is an ongoing flow, never a state. And so if we can create the conditions, mobilize the resources that enable us to be in this flow, enjoying even the challenges with curiosity, with playfulness, then we can be in the flow, a kind of unconditional flow. Our difficult emotions can be part of that flow, not an interruption to it. Again, we can bring curiosity, spaciousness to integrate whatever is arising, whether we would before have classified it as good, bad, negative, positive, whatever categories we would normally have used, we can just bring curiosity and space for integration. And the place of groundedness and centeredness and strength that we can access and move from, that can also give us discernment. We move with a grounded, centered awareness that is the power of discernment, because it is a wholeness, a connectedness, a listening deeply into what life is presenting in this moment. So when the mind is contracting and trying to be in control, trying to find discernment, trying to find the right direction, the right steps, the right answers, the right plan, we can notice that we've lost the clarity that comes from alignment in the groundedness, centeredness, a place where discernment is very naturally arising. So the mind is not something to struggle with or overcome, but it's a very good signal that we are contracted and in some degree of anxiety, some degree of feeling unsafe, and therefore looking for solutions for that. Now, in some cases, the solution may be to, if you're feeling unsafe because you're in the middle of the road and there are cars, don't do a practice to try to self-regulate, get out of the road. But when that's not the case, when it is the mind triggering ideas of danger, instead of entertaining the mind with complexity, remember the mind is signaling to you that you're feeling unsafe and that you can give room in the body and the breath to come back to a sense of safety, out of which clarity can come. What is really presenting itself as a challenge? And with your full resources available, how do you move in that space? I'm intending to keep these sessions, these classes to an hour, and we may sometimes go a little longer. And I think if we keep them short, we'll be also have less that we need to digest and more easily integrate each week. So in a way, this has really served as an overview, the big picture of what we're doing and why. And I invite you to, if there are questions that arise or insights that arise, make notes, do some journaling, enjoy the journey, and like you would take photos in a holiday, journal and notice, not as if you're trying to solve a problem, like I said, like you're on a holiday and noticing things that are interesting. Exploring uncharted territory. All right, anything that you'd like to share before we complete for today?
Also that I'm thankful. I forget the name of the other participant.
Galia? How do you pronounce it?
Galia.
Sometimes wonder if I'm pronouncing your name well.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I just also wanted to echo your appreciation of being a part of the journey. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to share as well. Just excited for the next few weeks.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And I feel like complete. I don't really feel like I have to add anything else. So.
Okay. Wonderful.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure being with you today and exploring and listening into the space of, you could say, the mystery of existence, the gifts of existence, the challenges of existence, seeing what arises. Thank you. And see you next week at the same time.
Thank you. See you next week.
Thank
Big
you.
hug.
Bye. Bye.